1, 2.
Great, perfect. Good morning, class. Hey! My name is Dave Molina. I don't know what you know about me. It probably doesn't matter. But I'm class of 71. 50 years ago, I was sitting in your seat. They're probably the same desk. So if you see my initials scratched on the side of it, that's me. Um, Not really. I'm talking about success and failure today. It's a pretty important thing, and I've got an assignment for you from the very start. So grab a piece of paper and a pencil. I've got some questions to ask you. Pencil or pen, whatever. So the first question is, because we're gonna, the whole thing about success and failure. You guys have how many football players in the class? How many? One? Okay. So the question is, and because football is a big thing for the whole school, and you've had some experiences here, and so what I want you to do is to list five five emotions you felt right after the Bosco game. The game came, the game went. Right afterwards, or the day or so afterwards, lift 1 through 5. List 5 emotions. There's no right or wrong answer. Just kind of dig a little bit deep. Number 4 and number 5 will be the deeper ones, but your 5 emotions looking back at the Bosco game. And I'm going to mute my phone. I'll be right back. Okay. So then there's the next 5 questions. So write 5 more numbers, 1 through 5. What positive things happen because of the Bosco game? Name 5 things that you could actually imagine as being a benefit or a good thing or a realization, whatever. Think of the good things that happen as a result of the Bosco game. You're not going to be graded on this. You don't even have to share this. This is for your own. It's going to help you kind of understand this whole concept we're talking about. Okay, so by now you should have pretty close to 5 emotions that you felt right after the game, maybe feel right now still, and also 5 good things that came from it. So I really the whole idea between success and failure. Everybody thinks success is great and failure is bad, but there's a little bit of both things on both those extremes. Um, my philosophy is it's only a failure if you don't learn something from it. I mean, I look at all the failures in my life and I look at them and I think I'm kind of grateful for them because it was a pretty good lesson. I was able to get a lesson from the failure, quote, the failure. It was not a failure for me. I learned something. Um, so it's only a failure if it stops you. There's this whole concept about resilience. And think of here's an experiment. Let's say you're like the greatest football team in the nation on earth, high school football team, and you go and you win every single game. You blast everybody out. You go and so maybe that's a good thing, but there's some bad things that go with that. I mean, you can be pretty arrogant. You can think you're hot stuff. You can think all kinds of thoughts that really don't help your growth. On the other hand, if you go out and you give your best 100%, and the scoreboard is you come out short, there's something to learn from that, and I think there's more of a benefit in learning how to handle that than to be the guy that wins everything and is kind of a jerk. Here's a story told by a guy, one of my classmates, Servite classmates. It was an author, some big business guy, and he told the story that there's this hockey player that was on one of these teams that just won everything. It was like a high school hockey team. It could have been college, I think. think it was high school, and they were in the final game, the very last game of the very last year, the very last team to conquer. And so guess what? They lost. And so this guy, this hockey player, he just grabs his hockey. This is after the game, throws it across the ice. It goes slamming, hits the other side. People are looking at it. He just storms out, cussing, blaming the referees, this, that, and the other thing. So, so he goes to the locker room. Well, guess who shows up in the locker room? His mother. His mom's in the locker room, and he just grabs him by the scruff of the neck and looks at him and says, what's the matter with you? You can never learn to win if you don't learn to lose. So that was his lesson, and it's a good thing he learned it. So there's always something to learn in whatever situation. If you can use the energy that you only have so much energy. If you use the energy to look at the things that you learn, it's not going to hurt so much, the things that hurt. So take a look. So the things that were the good things, and you can volunteer. I'm not going to, look over your shoulder like that. But can anybody give me some of the things that you wrote down of the five, one of the good things that came out of the game? Silence. Everybody's hiding behind There's got to be one good thing that happened. When somebody, Mr. Serdan, can you repeat it because I have a hard time hearing from this distance?
Sleep. Sleep.
Sleep. You got to sleep. That's a good thing. You probably slept real well. What else? Go ahead.
Well, maybe like we know more about it now.
Say, can you repeat that, Mr. Serdan?
You probably pronounce better than me.
We know more like about them.
We know more now about them.
Yes.
We know, yeah, good, good. What else?
We hung out with friends.
Your friend. It was it's a moment for friends. It's a moment for your support. It's the whole school's behind you. Your parents, the alumni, your coaches. You know, there's a lot of outpouring of love that you probably experience if you think about it. And if you concentrate on that, if you look at that, I'm not going to go into all the emotions you went through. It's normal to, feel disappointment, maybe resentment, maybe you felt it was unfair, or who knows. But all those things pass by. But what you hold on to that, if you look back on that 50 years from now, when you're in the classroom talking to the class of, 2071, you can be remembering, how this actually helped you in your journey. So there was a song popular by Frank Sinatra in our day, and it was called "That's Life." And the line in that was, you pick yourself up again and get back in the race. That's one thing to learn when there's a failure. If you learn to pick yourself up and get back in the race, you've gained something. Thomas Edison, the famous inventor, invented the telephone, the telegraph, the phonograph. Just tons of different things. Uh, but when he was inventing the light bulb, he went through 1,037 different filaments that actually worked. So it took him like 1,036 failures to get to the final thing. It was I think it was a cotton filament or some such thing in a vacuum. It took him those many failures to get to the success. So failure's got a bad rap. Failure is really the way you go through life, and if you have the right attitude about it, if you get the lesson from quote the failure, it's a success. So that's your job, that's your mission as a Servite student and soon as Servite grad, is to find the good in the failure. Some people recommend that you fail yourself to success. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is that you try and you fail, and you try and you fail, and you try and you fail, and you try and you fail, but you're learning as you go and eventually succeed. Abe Lincoln was a businessman. He was a crummy businessman. He lost his business. He ran for the state legislature in Illinois and lost. He ran for Congress, the United States Congress. He lost twice. He ran for a senator and he lost, and he had a bid for a vice president and he lost. And Abe Lincoln is probably our greatest president. He didn't give up. So there's another saying: fail early and fail often. You know, that means get in the mix. Learn, get it. Just keep at it and learn, and then that's, to me, that's success. Babe Ruth was, you probably know that actually it was Hank Aaron eventually beat him, but he was the king of SWAT. He hit like 800 home runs and everything like that. So that was the record that everybody remembered. But Babe Ruth also had more strikeouts than anybody, at the time. So that's that. It comes with the job. So it's all about how you process it in your minds. You can kind of be a victim and sit back and say, no, gosh, the refs, or they did this, or those are excuses. And if you want to get in that mode, it's not really helping you. You actually have control of how you think, and that was the point of the exercise that I gave you. The 5 emotions that you're feeling, probably some negative emotions, anger, despair, even, you know, exhaustion, whatever it was. But when you start thinking about the things that you learned from that, the things that benefited from you, your mood changes completely. You're able to get the message, get the lesson, and you're not wallowing in, quote, failure. That's called resilience. So if you can control your mind, and you just did it by writing down the things that were positive, you shifted the channel of your mind into just the bad stuff to the good stuff. Do that in everything that you do over the course of your lifetime. That's gonna get you to success. An attitude that, heck, I tried, I failed, I keep going. So there's two, our classmate Mike Freeman, you've probably heard, talks a lot about optimism and gratitude. Those are the two main mindsets that will just make your life so much easier and so much better. Optimism means looking for the good in things. And I do that all the time. Sometimes I fail, but I've learned that your mind really can create your reality if you learn the lessons and keep moving. And gratitude basically is a way of saying that everything that comes to me is a gift. And the failures that you have had and the failures that you will have are gifts, and see them as such. If you understand that, if you look at it that way, you're going to get the benefit, which many people totally miss their whole lives. You've been around pessimist people that always complain, carry on, and what, their failures just stop them, and they just wallow in that they don't keep moving. So learn from that. So I'm going to tell you a story, another story. It's about a young man. Actually, his mother was unwed. He was a child of an unwed mother. The unwed mother had to give him up for adoption, and the only really contingency she put on the adoptive parents was that they had to be college educated, because she wanted her unborn son to have a college education. So anyway, so he was put in an adoption agency, and so a couple parents had signed up for him, but close to the time he was born, they backed out because they wanted a girl, and it was a boy that was being born. So at the last minute, they called around, checked the people that were wanting to adopt, and they found this couple. They weren't a college couple. In fact, they were kind of a working couple. Neither of them had gone to college. They didn't have an awful lot of money, but they were available, and they wanted any child, boy or girl. So this young child was raised by step parents that didn't have great means, but they knew that the child growing up, they were that the real mother, or the birth mother, wanted them to have a college education. So they did their best. They actually sent him to a private school, very expensive. They didn't have the money to do it, but they sent him to private school. And after 1 year, he dropped out. It just wasn't for him. And he felt bad about his parents paying all this money for that. So he dropped out. But he stayed on campus, lived in people's dorms, kind of on the side. You know, it was, and he would collect bottles to pay for food. One day a week, he'd walk 7 miles across town because there was a free meal at some temple, and so he never got a college degree, and but he went to work. He found a job, and a job that he loved, and a job that he was really good at. So from age 20 to 30, think life was great. At age 30, he was fired from his job, and his whole life collapsed. Um, and so then he kind of started his own business. He started a company called Next, Next. Does anybody know who I'm talking about? Well, if you have an iPhone, if you're sitting on an iPhone, that was what he created. This was Steve Jobs. This was Steve Jobs' story. And I heard him tell this story. You can look it up on YouTube, Steve Jobs' graduation speech. I heard him tell this story live at a Stanford graduation about 15 years ago. And basically, he started all, he just didn't quit. And after everything that happened in his life, he was able to overcome. And so it's called resilience. He got his old job back. Apple became, greater than ever. He was CEO of Apple, and the rest is history. And if you've got a Mac, you can thank Steve Jobs for that. He was an unwanted child. So there's a saying that I kind of think about, and it is when life is sweet, say thank you. And when life is bitter, say thank you and grow. Okay. So one of the exercises you can do is do something that you're really bad at. That maybe there's something you want to do. Maybe you want to, play piano or whatever, something that you're really bad at. But if you do that, and you have the right attitude, you're gonna develop resilience, patience, and humility. The one when I was you're a little bit older than you, when I went to college, a couple of my Servite friends of mine, we started this band, Los Magnificos, and we were pretty bad. But we had so much fun with it, and so we got ourselves in all these predicaments. We go into this restaurant, the three of us dressed up, with our outfits. It's like the Three Amigos, if you remember that movie. We were real dopes and everything. But we go in this restaurant, a nice restaurant, be playing our music. And one time the manager just sent us to the door, and I tell you, we laugh so hard about that even now. We were just, but it didn't stop us. And I remember one time we would serenade our girlfriends, which, by the way, that's a good one. That actually works. But anyway, so it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and Richard, the guy with the guitarron, the big bass, it was his girlfriend. So we're gonna bring her to serenade 3 o'clock in the morning. So we're outside her window. We start singing the beautiful song and everything like that. So the window opens, and Richard, his love is, his mi amor, well, it was his amor's father said, "Richard, she's not here." Says, "Where is she?" "She's on a date." 3 o'clock in the morning. So like wah wah wah. So I mean, we had all these adventures of just throwing ourselves at the wall and seeing what would stick. We didn't have much talent, but we laughed at it, So we developed resilience, and we had so much fun. And so here's a challenge for you. If you want to learn something that you're really bad at, try dancing. So I did, this is one of my big break, because when I was 59 years old, I hated dancing. I thought I was the biggest dope. At age 59, I started dancing. I've been dancing for the last 10 years. It's the greatest thing. My advice to you is, when you go to college, take a dance class. It can change your life. And you're going to be awful. You're going to be bad. You're going to be terrible. But if you laugh at yourself, someday you'll be a great dancer. That's my advice. So remember, what happens to you happens for you. So the things that seem like they're bad, it's a gift. It's some if you take it, if you learn from it. An example of, quote, a failure in my life, I was a dentist, I was in the Air Force. A lot of my fellows were applying for graduate school. And I thought, I kind of like oral pathology. Oral pathology is a dental specialty where you look at slides and diagnose cancers and diseases. It's all about oral diseases. And I thought, well, gee, I could be, a scholar. I could give slideshows, like to do that, and I would be a specialist, and the Air Force would pay for it, and I'd probably be at a big medical center. And so I flew all the way to Washington D.C. On a Navy plane, and interviewed like that. Got back, wait, it took the GRE, the whole bit. It was a big deal to do all this stuff. Well, and I got the letter. Well, sorry, we chose somebody else. As it turned out, they only have one oral pathologist trained every 3 years, and they had already handpicked this guy years ahead. So there was no way I was, no matter what I was going to do, was I going to be. And I thank God that didn't happen. That would have been a total disaster if I was looking at a microscope, around specimens. My lungs would be formaldehyde, and I'd be, a nerd, and my kids would have grown up all over the place. And instead, we live in a small town in Northern California. The schools are great, or dentistry was so much better than that could have been for me. So thank God. So that failure was, gosh, what a blessing that was. I can't believe I was thinking that. And I could have been a real sourpuss and complain about it. This wasn't fair. But why waste your energy? You only have so much energy. Tell the good story. Whatever thing happens, tell the good story. Look at what you can learn from it and move forward. Um, so, and talking about the whole football thing, I have a classmate, and it was the big game. This is 50 years ago. Servite, he was the end, a split end, a wide receiver, and so it's the big game. And so Bruce Emmert is fading back, looking down the field. There's Mike down. He throws a perfect spiral all the way down the field. Mike goes like that and go boom, bounces off his hands. Total, total, total. In his eyes, a total screw up. And I tell you, and I understand, when I'm 50 years old, so I've had a lot of successes and thankfully more failures than successes. So I know how to handle it, and I know how I would have handled it, with a 50-year-old, 50-year advantage in wisdom and experience. And I would have just, passed it off. I screwed up, no big deal. I tried my best. Poor Mike beat himself up so bad. He was crying that night. I mean, he just didn't sleep. He was crying all night long. And I tell you, in his own telling of it, he was depressed for a year, maybe a year and a half after. And it just hit him so hard, and just, he just didn't have the resilience to just, brush it off and say, hey, I dropped the ball, on to the next game. So, he punished himself more than he really needed to. And I think he's learned from, it's been a long time since that's been by, but gosh, at your age, you kind of magnify things an awful lot. But the perspective, the long-term perspective, when you see this pattern over and over again, you fail, keep going, you fail, you keep going. It's going to help you through life. Um, there's this whole thing about the acres of diamonds. That this man, this miner and stuff like that, was thinking, gosh, if only I could find some land with diamonds on it. And he looked and he looked, he'd go here and he'd go there and go all over the world looking for these diamonds. And some wizard or or some smart person comes up and says, you know what? You've got acres of diamonds on your own property. Go look. And so he started digging and digging and digging it. And sure enough, there were diamonds every place where he dug. And the thing about diamonds, they form under great pressure and great heat. It takes a long time to create a diamond, but they're the hardest, most resilient type of mineral in the world. And this guy was looking every place, and where lie was exactly right within himself. Resilience, that ability to just be tough. it was right there inside of them, and it's inside of you as well. You just have to realize that and reach for it, particularly in the times that you quote fail. So that is what I have to say. Um, it's all about telling your own story, and you can frame it any way you want. You can frame the defeat as, the worst thing that ever happened to me, or you can frame the defeat as, I learned something. I learned to be a good loser. I learned to appreciate my classmates, my family, and friends. It's up your. You get to choose. You really can, with practice. It's probably takes some practice. Look on the optimistic side of things. It's going to help you. My father was the most optimistic person I knew. He was also the happiest person that I knew my whole life. So I know that it works, and I think it's important. So I know this is Spanish class, and last time I spoke to a class, I had a poem up my sleeve, and it was Spanish. But I mean, it's perfect for this group here. So if Mr. Cerdan will forgive me, so there's Mexican Spanish and there's Spanish, and you're getting probably the Spanish. So this poem is basically Mexican and American street Spanish a little bit, and it's about a cruiser, a lowrider, which I don't think, Mr. Cerdan, do they have lowriders in Spain?
No, I don't think so. Let me translate. No rider. I don't know exactly what was that.
Yeah, well, it was kind of a big thing when I was growing up. I think there's still a lot of lowriders in San Francisco. There's a whole club. So anyway, let me see if I can pull up my poem. So it's a lot of slang, a lot of Mexican American slang. So my apologies in advance, Mr. Cerdan.
I've been here for 6 years. My Spanish is changing too. My son speaks the Spanish from California. And I'm learning that. I'm trying to be the one that is changing.
Okay. Well, so it's all about a phrase, and it's called, the phrase is ni modo. And it actually matches with this success and failure thing. Ni modo is an expression of, whatever, you're disappointed, but ni modo, I'm going to go on, it doesn't matter, ni modo. And so that's the name, name of the poem is Pues ni modo. So this is my poem. Okay. So you know what cruisers are. You know what lowriders are, right? Yes, guys, yes. Okay. Do any of you have probably none of you have a lowrider. I had a '65 Chevy that I'm sure is now a lowrider because they were popular cars. Chevy Impala '65. So anyway, here we go. Pues ni modo. I cruised in my Chevy, muy lindo, mi amor, but I suddenly smelled something awful. I looked underneath. Ay caray, I can see that her muffler is no longer lawful. I knew all my homies would laugh and make fun, so I had to act muy deprisa. So I stepped on the gas. I quickly hauled ass, because I just wasn't down for no risa. I knew of a vato, a friend of a tia whose suegro was chino. He knew of a shop that was tops and could swap out my muffler in no time, muy fino. I drove down the road smoking smoke a la mode with my face hidden by my sombrero. I saw a bright sign and I got in the line of a shop called El Pedorero. There's a real shop by that name, by the way. My vato friend said only one guy was top of the crop and the best of the best. Magnifico, muy talentoso, cortés, el mejor del mejor, nothing less. He told me his name, saying no one could claim to come close or even compare to Señor Valentín Adalberto Cortés dos Rascuaches Ramirez Ferrer. He fixed it in no time. He fixed it real good. Then he gave me a bonus to boot. He offered to tell me the secret he learned as a child, and I said, okay, shoot. I always remember the words that he said and the wisdom he offered to share from Señor Valentín Adalberto Cortés dos Rascuaches Ramirez Ferrer. Mijo. When your taco shell busts and your queso falls out and your carne gets messy and scattered, don't sit in the gutter and uselessly mutter palabritas. It just doesn't matter. You may not have heard an expression, two words that will settle all things y a todo. The magic occurs when you utter these words. Just say to yourself, pues ni modo. When ice cream cone splatters, it just doesn't matter so much if you know what to say. Your girlfriend forgets it's your birthday? Don't sweat it. Tomorrow will be a new day. Your car just won't start or your hair just won't part? Well, be glad that you've got a few pelos. You're sick as a dog or you're lost in the fog? Well, don't panic. There's always el cielo. He fixed up my car and he even so far has earned credit for fixing my life. Mi amor, the car, now still runs and my girlfriend still shuns pensamientos of being my wife. Sometimes I feel like I get a bad deal, a bad cold, a bad meal, a bad todo. Be that as it may, at the end of the day, suck it up, give it up, pues ni modo. Dun, 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 dun. So back to you, Mr. Saradan, and back to the class. Any comments, questions, or what do you think? You think I'm full of it? Go ahead. But Mr. Saradan, if you could please say what he says, because I can't hear I have bad audio too.
Yeah. He's asking if you're a dentist. Are you a dentist?
I am a retired dentist. Yeah, I spent 40 years, and I retired just a year and a half ago. It's a great field. I love it. I did this whole talk on careers to other classes, this thing, and that's one of my favorite talking points is, how you figure out your career. This dentistry worked really well for me. Are you thinking of being a dentist?
He was curious only.
Just curious?
He was just curious, yeah.
Gotcha. What else?
How many times a day should you floss?
What?
How many times a day should you floss?
He's asking how many times a day should he flush?
Just once, just one good job. One good job,
Oh my God, you're lying.
And remember,
Doctor
take off your mask. What else? Oh, soccer. So this is you see my soccer, any soccer players in the team? In the room, I should say.
One soccer player there.
How many? At least one?
Couple of soccer players. Two soccer players.
Two soccer players. Well, okay, so my class started 50 years ago. 50 years ago we started Servite soccer. There was no team, and we made it just ourselves. A bunch of students started it out. So and we're very proud of the success and just the leadership and just the brotherhood that is exhibited in the soccer team. We follow it very, very closely. Austin McElrath, I'm sure you know, we had a pickup game on our reunion, 50th reunion weekend was like 2 weeks ago. So a bunch of these old guys from my class went over, we had a pickup game, played with, there's a kid, who was it? Brad Early? Is there a Brad Early on the team or?
Brad Hansen? Brad Hansen?
Anyway, he came and played with us, which was pretty cool. So anyway, so we're big fans, not only of the football team, but definitely our class, and also our class was the first water polo team as well. So anyway, we got a tour. Austin gave us a tour of Servite, and man alive, you guys have a wonderful facility. I mean, it was all grass and dirt back in that day. When the school first opened, the Servite priests lived on the second floor of the building that you're in right now. I'm assuming you're in the old building. So a lot of history. And you guys are making history too. The whole pandemic thing. I mean, talk about, having to, have a good outlook on that. You guys have, as I can see. And, the football season, it's a tremendous gift, and you'll see it later, to have gone as far as you've gone, still be in it, and it will be something you'll remember your whole life and very well. And the other thing that I can tell you to do is really to stay close as a group It turns out my Servite friends, we're kind of like joined at the hips. At this point in time, we graduated with a class of 144. That's easy to remember because it's one gross. And so 21 of it has passed away. We've got a couple people who are pretty ill right now. But, this is the time when, brotherhood is probably the most valuable. We really appreciate. We've got this email chain that's gone on for 12 years, dumb jokes and memories and, sometimes some housekeeping to do. But you guys, look out for each other. And, the whole thing about your mind, there's a positive spiral that if you keep thinking good thoughts, you feel better, and you think good thoughts, and you feel better, that it goes the other way too. There's definitely a negative spiral, a way of thinking that it can be very, very damaging and very, very dangerous, really. You have a bad thought and makes you feel worse, and and you're going around with the same bad stuff around and around and around and around. You're basically going down the drain. So if you catch yourself in that downward spiral, which I've done, I've had some months and years of depression, and realize now to catch it early. If you're thinking depressive thoughts, you do what you can to stop that cycle. Exercise, go out, do stuff, be with friends, talk it out. Get therapy, and there's medications too. I think every class that graduates has at least one student that commits suicide, which is a sad thing. And it's kind of pandemic right now, or epidemic, I should say, of suicides with young people. And the thing is, you can get in the cycle and go down and stuff, and it's easy to do that, but it's recognize it. If you're going down, get some help, talk to a friend, be there for each other. Always have an open door and talk these things throughout. A lot of the suicide, the suicides actually are overdoses with drugs, and people get as a parent, I've seen so many people that I know have had kids with drug problems. You guys are probably in a good spot, but if you look around the classroom to the left and the right, some of you are going to be dealing with serious drug issues. So my advice on that was, number one and most important, don't start. Don't be at the party and get talked into it. Don't do that. It's harder to get off the bus than it is to get on the bus. And then, it's a serious thing. People overdose on it. There's a lot of, fentanyl, on the streets. It's very, very dangerous like that. So, don't go there. And I know most of you won't, but some of you will be tempted, and it's a bad thing. So, stay away from that for sure. End of lecture. Sorry, I'm a dad. I've got 4 kids. I've got 3 grandkids. Speaking of Spanish, my son, I think it was in the email that he's a director. He worked, Steve Jobs, the guy that created your iPhone, also created that same 5 years after he lost his job. He started Pixar Animation Studios. And so my son was a student he liked animation. He always liked to draw. And so he went to CalArts, was an animation major. And 10 years of working there as a story artist, he got the chance to be the writer and co-director of the movie Coco, which we just celebrated Dia de Muertos this last couple of days. So that was a real, talk about success. 36 years old. Now he's directing his own movie that he wrote, and that'll come out in 2023. We have no idea what the name of it is or what it's about. They keep that top secret. But the movie that comes out in 2023, look at the credits. It'll be written by Adrian Molina and directed by Adrian Molina. So that's a success. And actually, he from a very early age, he had that goal on his mind. We found a time capsule from grade school, 12 years old, and he wrote, "When I grow up, I want to be an animator and I want to work for Pixar." So the artist out there, if you see yourself as an artist, I mean, you can do it. I mean, if you have the passion. He did. That's one thing we talked about in the whole careers thing. Find what you love to do, and if you can make make a good living with it, go for it. And if you're worried about the bucks, find something that's close. And everybody's different. So anyway, I will turn the class back to Mr. Serdan. I appreciate the opportunity of sharing with you. I hope it gave you some things to think about. Go Friars! Good luck on your game this week. We'll be cheering for you. And anyway, God bless. Oh, yeah, the other thing, sorry, when you look at the apostles, talk about failure, when the apostles, when Jesus was crucified, think about the apostles, they're wandering around, all their dreams were crushed. This guy that they thought they were going to deliver them from their Roman overlords, this guy that was going to work miracles, be the Messiah, he was ignominiously executed as a criminal on Calvary. Think of the failure that these apostles felt, that struck to their very core. They were hiding out. They were cowards. They denied him. They didn't want to have anything. They were leaving town. And so that was the failure. But look at the glory that resulted from that. And so when you're in the midst of just utter desolation, look beyond that. Look to the resurrection. Amen. See you guys.
Very much.